there's one area which I constantly come up against, and that is nobody wants to say that they sell. Nobody wants to admit to being a salesperson. Even when they are selling, there's absolutely no doubt that what they're doing is selling. They don't want to say, I have sales skills. For me, every single person, I have similar issues with, not necessarily young people coming through. Every person in an organisation needs sales skills. And that doesn't mean that they're jumping up, and someone walks through the door and saying, I've got this wonderful product to sell you. But what it does mean is that they understand the benefits of their organisation and what it's doing, that they are ambassadors for the organisation, that they're really positive. And all of that is sales skills, networking skills as well. So that general ability to walk into a room and start a conversation and be able to have just talk about anything. It really doesn't matter if you're talking about the rugby match at the weekend or the motor racing or whatever it is, but just being able to do that. I guess that's confidence as well. So that's another skill to add to the armour.
Okay, so we should teach sales technique and or sales skills and networking skills, which build on each other in a way, but are very different in another.
Yes.
What else do you think we should teach them?
Solving problems. So I think there is quite a lot probably done on solving problems, but it's probably usually it's so done in such an organised fashion or almost like an exam question that it's quite hard to imagine what it's like in the real world.
So problem solving skills, networking skills, sales skills, yes. What about all the knowledge? Where do you think how that comes in? How important is it?
But it's a good question. I think it's almost the way they take that knowledge in that is slightly more important than the actual knowledge. The knowledge is important, but nobody is going to go and work in an organisation where it is exactly what's needed. Most organisations, everything is overlaid by that culture, that way of doing things, those processes, etc., etc. So, technical knowledge is obviously very important. So if we're talking from an accounts perspective, there's technical knowledge. If you're talking about marketing, there is technical knowledge about what type of marketing, how you would use social media. So there is a level of technical knowledge. But then mostly when you're in a role, it's about finding things out. So it's how do you build your knowledge? Where do you go? And of course we've got the wonderful internet. But the problem there is that you've got 5,000 responses to whatever you ask. So it's being able to use, the internet in a good way. I'm assuming you have sort of modules that do that. I don't know. But for me, using search engines, and not just search engines, but who do you know? So if somebody came into our organisation and, I asked them to look at, a topic around maybe business funding, how does a business get funding? I would expect them to very quickly understand what sort of funding is available. Now, they'll probably have a good go on Google, but then potentially they could talk to one of the local accountants, they could talk to one of the banking members, they could use the resource that's available, all of that expertise and knowledge. And the Chamber's quite lucky because we've got access to so much expert knowledge, but I think any organisation will have their own sort of sources. So I think it's being inquiring and finding the research skills, I guess is what I'm saying. Presentation skills obviously is another one. So and that's not just presentation as in standing up and talking about something. That is really, really important. Again, it's all back to the confidence that you should be able to stand at the front of a room and talk about a subject, providing you've prepared and done your research.
Yes.
So I think that the presentation of the person is important, but also being able to put together a sort of a well-argued proposal, you know, that has a little bit of background, the reasons why they think this would be a good idea, and presenting it in a very, you know, an attractive way.